Well, hello, hello. You often hear about the accountable plan. Now, many of us are going to be doing tax strategies, and in our analysis of this particular business owner who is a single member LLC, it may be time to elect S Corp status. Now, once you've elected S Corp status, you have to now implement something called an accountable plan. It means when you spend money in your personal side on behalf of the business, in order to get reimbursed, you have to have this plan in place. And I know a lot we're going to be saying S Corp, S Corp, S Corp, but it applies also for the C Corp. So what confuses people is this fancy term called accountable plan, and we seem like we don't know what that is. But remember when we worked for corporate and we traveled on behalf of the company, we would have to fill out an expense reimbursement form and submit it to get reimbursement. It's the same thing in your small business. It's your version of the travel and entertainment policy. So I'm going to show you what the accountable plan looks like and how to properly implement it and get money tax-free out of the business into your personal account legally. Because the whole point of being a small business is to convert as many personal expenses as possible into business expenses legally. So we're going to be using our home office. This is an example. Our home office, we have utilities we're spending, the internet, mileage, we're driving here and there on behalf of the company. And so we need to get that money back. So in our S Corp, C Corp, we're going to submit the expense reimbursement form and get that out. So I'm going to show you what all of that looks like. I'm going to share my screen and talk about this. So I do a whole write-up. You can see, again, I mentioned tax codes favor business owners. These are some of the things you're paying anyway in your personal life, your mortgage, and some of us have rent, utilities, insurance, pest control, maintenance, cell phone, all of these other things that we have to pay anyway. But if you really look at it, we're using it for the business. And then I tell you and explain what the accountable plan is and why the reimbursement works, and tell you the exact code that supports it, and then how to audit proof ourselves. We not only want to minimize the taxes, but we want to audit proof ourselves. If the IRS comes knocking and want to take a look, hey, knock yourself out. I'm fully documented. You're as good as your documentation and your argument. And then here we go. I tell you about how to put it exactly on the tax return. What is it going to look like on the S Corp tax return? What's it going to look like on your personal tax return? And in your permanent files, what do you want to keep to substantiate everything? I'm going to give you examples and a template, okay? So as we go through, this is an example of what your accountable plan could look like. Now, if you're not an attorney, technically you shouldn't be filling this out. Stay in your lane. If you're the accountant, the tax preparer, you're going to have this example, but let them fill it out. I see a lot of courses that I've taken, everybody uses this particular template, but you can just give it to them and explain that they should have their attorney look at it. It may be statutory things that they want to be considerate of, but the thing is, everybody does an accountable plan. It's not that complicated. So let them take it. You have your little disclaimer up here. It can be used as a guide to draft one. Talk to your legal counsel about it. Where the yellow highlights are, you put your company in, and you're just saying, hey, listen, this is a policy I have in place that I'm going to allow these employees to earn, while they're working, earning their money for me, they're spending money in their personal life, and I'm going to say, yes, I'm going to reimburse you because it cost you to work for me. And guess what? It can be one and the same person, right? The S Corp shareholder is also an employee. So it can also be the same name. What I'm saying is put this policy together, and I want you to get into habit. You should be having board meetings. You can have a board meeting, your annual shareholder meeting, and adopt this policy formally into your business. Remember, we're running a business here. This is not a game. We're adding to our credibility of how we're running our business. You're one and the same person. Maybe no one will ever look, but who cares? You need to do it because that's what you're doing. You're a real business. Here's a letter that you would write, because just because you have the policy in place doesn't mean you're allowing all employees to do it. So just because I have a policy in place where you can work from home doesn't mean that I want you to do it. So this is a letter with the officer's name on it and the employee's name giving permission to say, hey, the company desires you to work at home sometimes or whatever. And then you can say all the reasons. I made up this letter. You can see. So the employer and the employee can be the same person, but it's just an extra step to go through or extra kind of documentation to have in place. And that's why that is a sample. Now, the 8829 is a great backup to show why you're reimbursing the amount you are for home office. So you're going to calculate what that home office, if you were in a single member LLC and you're doing your 8829, it clearly would just, go over to the Schedule C and show the deduction. But in the case of the S Corp, we're talking about a different tax return. But hey, I still have mortgage interest, all of the things that I would normally put in my 8829, all of that is there. And in this particular case, I came up with 2153. Now, this is an annual amount, right? So it's divided by 12. So you could either get into the habit of reimbursing yourself monthly, or you can pretty much save it up and then just say, hey, move this at the end of the year before 12/31 if you're a cash basis taxpayer, right? So we want to move it in time, but this is the support of why. Or, you can just estimate every month, move a certain amount of money for the personal expenses, and then by December, you'll know what your utilities are and all that, and you can true up in your last month. Here's an example. I just Googled in Excel how to do an expense reimbursement form, because you submit this and you have to have the receipts, of course, right? So the purpose is, let's say, home office or other business expense, whatever. You just put something and you could fill that part out if it's more formal. And let's say on 7/8/2022, you can have an account number if you want. Let's see, a cell phone, right? Spelled correctly. And then I would say, here's a phone. Let's say it was $35 or $38. And then it starts filling out. You see the date start filling out. And then let's say on 7/10. And let's say this is for, let's make it a little bit more like what I would do at the end of the month, let's say. I'll put it over here and say, you see what I mean? And now it starts adding up and this is completed. You're going to submit this. Let's say I traveled and I had to buy a plane ticket because I'm going to meet a prospect. Oops. I'm going to type here. XYZ prospect. This could be airfare, transport. Let's say $450. You see what I mean? And I had to spend that on behalf of the company. Now this $688, I'm going to submit it with my, receipts on the back, and my United Airlines, my phone bill, maybe whatever. My 8829, you can have in the permanent file, as I showed you before. And now the company is going to reimburse out of the S Corp bank account and direct deposit into my individual accounts, separate accounts. In other words, you don't just go and pay your cell phone total, unless the cell phone is owned by the company. It's my personal one, so I want that to go into my personal bank account. The S Corp's books are going to have these categories, maybe not say home office, but it'll just have office expense or something like that, and or whatever. You don't even have to break it out all. Some people put, reimbursement account or whatever, but it's some sort of expense category, accounts payable, books, all of this. Of course, credit cash, remove the cash out of the account, and now boom, right into your personal account. And you just got tax-free money out of the S Corp into your personal account. And that is an accountable plan. Hopefully that makes sense. And of course, email me with any questions.